genel izleyici kitlesi için uygundur.
Saat Farkı'ndan merhabalar. Farklı ülkelerden, farklı milletlerden konuklar ağırlıyoruz bu programda ve dünyayı Ekotürk ekranında buluşturuyoruz. Bugün stüdyoda çok kıymetli bir konuğum var. Afganistan'da oldukça etkili bir isim. Afganistan parlamentosunun ilk kadın başkan yardımcısı. Geçmişte eski meclis başkan yardımcısı olarak görev yapmış. Aynı zamanda Taliban'la da müzakerelerde o dönem yoğun bir gayret gösteren, çaba sarf eden etkili bir figür, siyasi aynı zamanda aktivist. Fawzia Koofi stüdyomuzda, Türkiye'de, kendisi şu anda İstanbul'da çeşitli görüşmeler için buradaydı. Biraz bugün Taliban'ın göreve gelmesi, iktidara gelmesinin üzerinden 2 yıl geçti. Ağustos itibariyle, Ağustos 2021'in üzerinden 2 sene geçti. 2 yıllık Taliban iktidarını biraz konuşacağız. Bu dönemde kadınların hak ve özgürlüklerinde çok ciddi kısıtlamalar var. Biraz süreci bize özetleyecek kendisi. Şu anda stüdyo konuğumuz. Welcome Ms. Koofi. It's a pleasure to have you here in the studio. Welcome to Istanbul.
Thank you so much, Fawzia. It's such a pleasure to be with you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Interview last time, but this was virtual now.
It was virtual. It's
in person.
It's great to have you in person, Ms. Fawzia. Thank you so much for coming again. What brought you to Turkey first? Let's start with that, Ms. Koofi. What did you do in Turkey? Like you came for meetings?
Yeah. Well, Turkey is becoming an important country day by day. The host for a lot of refugees from Afghanistan. Thousands of people from Afghanistan live in different cities in Turkey. Strategically a very important country for Afghanistan and for the region. So we had a conference with women who are living in Turkey, with some women, to listen to them, to make them heard, to make them feel that they're part of the process, to listen to their problems. Also, they have families in Afghanistan. They go back and forth. So also to listen to what they think about the situation in Afghanistan, what the Turkey government can do in terms of helping the situation in Afghanistan. We also had a meeting with different civil society organizations, journalist council. We had meeting with, Freydun Oğlu, who is the UN Secretary General assessment, head of independent assessment mission for Afghanistan, which is a very important mission. The report will be released in November. We met with Richard Bennett, who is the special rapporteur of UN on human rights in Afghanistan. We met a lot of Afghans. It's very important for us to be engaged with Turkey, and that's why we are here.
We will elaborate also Turkey's role during these 2 years and also for the future. But let me ask you, Ms. Koofi, because it's been 2 years, exactly 2 years since the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, and things are not going very well, to be honest, especially for women. First, it started with ban on education and then movement, and recently we saw another report banning women from even going to a national park. Beauty salons, like almost every aspect of life is kind of restricted for women and girls. How is the situation when you look at the past 2 years? Is there any progress? Not really, it doesn't really seem so, but how is the situation? Things are going even worse during these 2 years. How is the situation for women now? Can you breathe?
No, in fact, when I talk with my colleagues, with my staff, with my family, with my friends, everyone, with those women who are activists or they used to work before, including this morning, like I was talking to some women, and they were telling me that the last thing the Taliban would do probably would be ask women not to breathe, because they stop women from every sphere of life. And it got worse day by day. As you rightly say, they started from banning women from secondary education to university to work, to going out without male companion or mahram, to now parks were banned already. Now they ask, there is a public place called Bandi Amir, which is a very beautiful historic and also sightseeing place. They ask women not to go to that place. While it's like an open space, it's not even a park. It has become worse for women. And it has also become worse for everyone, I think. And I think without a political process changing, like the political ecosystem, where we have a process where Taliban will be one part of it, and there are other political groups, women groups, part of a political process. The same thing that we hoped we will achieve through our negotiation in Doha, which we didn't. We are hoping, and that's all the efforts, what I'm doing, and with my other sisters, we're meeting all Afghans in exile to unite them for a political process. Because the situation got worse, economically, human rights-wise, no countries in the world is actually doing what Taliban do. Look at Turkey as a role model for the Muslim world, I would say. Here, women do whatever they want to do. Qatar, where the Taliban office was there, they have more female students in the university and school than male. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Indonesia, they have a female foreign minister. Pakistan, for instance, where they had a female prime minister,
All countries except Afghanistan.
And in Afghanistan also, I mean, what they do, we know that Islam is on the base of education and enlightenment. But how can under the name of Islam you stop your woman from going to school and you name it is Islamic? Because, I'm worried that in long term, what happens in Afghanistan is going to affect every Muslim country, especially and initially, because there are some elements in our societies who have the same mentality of Taliban, right? So when they see Taliban are doing that, they think it's also possible in their own country. So they can actually create challenge for any countries, especially the Muslim countries. And that's why I think, working to change the situation is important for all the Muslim majority country.
Ms. Koofi, do you think there should be a different kind of approach between regional countries, especially as you mentioned, Muslim countries such as Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Western world? Because there are now different approaches how to deal with Taliban. And maybe some Islamic countries, some Muslim majority countries might have more influence on the Taliban. On the other hand, Western countries have tried to impose sanctions on Afghanistan. It didn't really work. It didn't really help people on the ground in Afghanistan. So still countries are discussing, because no country officially recognizes the Taliban government yet after 2 years. So what should be do you think there should be a one unique and basic approach to Taliban, or there should be different approach by regional countries and Western countries? What is the best approach to Taliban? How to deal with the Taliban government to help solve your problems, women's problems in the country?
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. The Muslim majority countries and the OIC member states, for instance, they have a big responsibility, because what Taliban do, unfortunately, create a lot of Islamophobia. In the Western world, when you travel, many people think that Taliban represent Islam, which is not true, right? A religion is about coexistence. It's about being together. So I think the Muslim majority country have a role to protect our religion from a very radicalized view being interpreted by Taliban. So therefore, and also in the last 20 years, Afghanistan has transformed. So even if when Taliban say this is Islamic or this is traditional, they're wrong. What Taliban try to do is impose more sanction on women to keep their power. So it's about power. It's not about ideology or about religion. And so the Muslim countries, yes, there is a division between region and the global north, so to say, or the Western world. I think, first of all, because I have spoken to the Security Council, I have been engaged with many member states, along with my other sisters from Afghanistan. I have been engaged with members of Security Council, with member of Human Rights Council, etc. I think, first of all, there should be a unity of position among many countries in the region and the Western world. I think the engagement with Taliban should be principled. For instance, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues identified as core issues that the world wants to engage with Taliban around these issues. And all countries in the region, Muslim majority countries and countries in global north should pursue the same issues. For now, I see that countries who are in the region or neighboring countries of Afghanistan, they have one agenda. Each country has their own agenda. They engage with Taliban in their own way. Then you have the global north who have their own agenda. And people of Afghanistan on the ground are suffering, especially the women are suffering because of all this divided position and fragmentation among the international community. So I think there should be few things. First of all, the international community, especially the Western and the Muslim majority countries, should define what is it that they want to engage with Taliban. Because each time when they engage, they start from women's rights because it's easy. And then they go for other issues. We haven't had any progress since they engaged.
So what's the ideal for you?
The ideal, I think, is first of all, few things. First of all, they need to identify few issues for engagement, and all of them follow that, and ask Taliban to deliver on that, right? Because Taliban
But we're also talking about women's rights again here, right?
First should be women's rights and human rights. First should be women, because the world cannot see women of Afghanistan being deprived from the basic rights. It's going to have a consequence on security. As we all know, women's rights are security. Women's rights are economy. It's not even about women's rights to education. So women's rights the first. And second, I think the countries must also pressurize Taliban to open for a political process, because this situation is not sustainable, Faiza sister. This is not going to last for long. The majority of people are not part of the political process. It's a government of Taliban, for Taliban, by Taliban. It's not going to last. And when you talk with Taliban, you ask them to open for a dialogue, they are like, why is not President Biden sharing power? Why should we share power? I mean, this is the only kind of resemblance they want to make with President Biden, while he won the election, right? If the Republicans are not in his cabinet, they are in Congress. Yeah. But in Afghanistan, no political opposition can even say one word. If you say one word as woman activist, you will be put in prison. So I think this is not good for any country. Therefore, I think there should be principled engagement, like few issues as principle for engagement. Secondly, unity among the international community. The Muslim majority countries continue to influence, and also try to change the political ecosystem. Because without changing that, Taliban think that power is God's gift to them, and it will remain for them. They think that they have defeated NATO, and they are the victory now. They will not share power with anybody. Yeah. While I think some level of people's participation in power is important. You know, any country who is based on democracy, Turkey just had its election, right? In June, July, you just had, your president is elected based on people's vote. We want the same thing in Afghanistan. It's also a Muslim country, but Taliban don't like election. They think power is God's gift, let it be. So we want those kind of basic principles, very basic, some sort of people's participation.
What is going to change their mentality? I think nothing like sanction. I mean, I got your point, the principled approach, but because I'm also asking this to better understand, there are different approaches in the, especially Western media, whether to officially, formally recognize the Taliban and help solve their problems, women's especially problems, through the government, or completely isolating the government. So which way would help more, do you think? Because there are still major different approaches, especially when I look at the Western media, they really don't know.
They don't know
how to deal with the regime after 2 years. So what do you think? How do you read that uncertainty in the West, especially how to deal with it?
Honestly, the world doesn't have a strategic approach toward Afghanistan. Whoever I meet in the international community, they're like only talking about humanitarian aid and economic problem.
Exactly.
Which economic problem and humanitarian aid, the humanitarian crisis happened as a result of something, right? There is no government recognized, there is kind of no government representative of all segment of society. Women are not part of it, ethnic groups are not part of it. So something went wrong, that as a result there is a humanitarian crisis. So instead of tackling the roots of the problem, everybody talks about humanitarian. And I think we need to, when I say change of political ecosystem, yes, there should be measured pressure, not pressure on everything. You know, if we identify 3-4 issues and we ask Taliban to deliver on that, especially like on women's rights, the Muslim countries, you know, on establishing a broad-based government, the Security Council could appoint somebody to work with the region, could mandate somebody to work with the region, because each country has an influence over Taliban. Sure. You know, Qatar has their own influence, UAE, Pakistan, Iran, Russia, China. The US has its own influence. Turkey has its own kind of relationship and influence. So each country could together work if the Security Council mandates somebody for Afghanistan political process. Not only humanitarian problem, but political process. And that person will work with the region, will work with political groups who are now in Turkey, in Europe, in the neighboring countries, in UAE, in Iran, in Turkey, more of them are in Turkey. Work with them, with the women groups, and work with Taliban and see where the common ground can be found.
So you're obviously not saying that completely isolating Taliban is going to work, of course. I mean, because there are also some people in the Western media especially saying that unless they fulfill the conditions, there should be no recognition or even like basic dealing with the regime, but
I think
it's not going to work, I guess.
I think there should be engagement on principles and make them accountable for those principles, you know, make them accountable, especially the Muslim majority countries, because the language is very important. Each time there is a delegation, they benefit that. They say, oh, we met this, without any clear indication on what is the progress. So I think when, like for instance, OIC delegation is now in Afghanistan. They went today. There are some ulamas from Turkey as well. I think that ulama from OIC should challenge Taliban and tell them that, you know, our religion is about iqra.
Ms. Koofi, do you really sincerely believe that? Because I know that you were part of the negotiations at that time, and I remember you said that you also believed that, or maybe you wanted to believe them during the negotiations,
exactly.
Even though you knew that it's not going to work, but still you wanted to believe that. Do you really still sincerely believe or think that someone from the ulama or from like a Muslim leader such as Erdogan, let's say, or Sheikh Tamim, whoever, can really change their mind about Islam, about religion?
It's not the mindset. It's not the ideology. It's politics.
Nothing can change it, right? I mean, I'm just asking that
their
question.
Ideology, nothing can change.
Yes.
But if they pressurize them and they tell them that you're going to lose my support, because it's not the ideology, it's not, they're doing it for politics, and we know that.
Yeah. So they're just using it, basically, you say.
They're using it for politics because until December, women were allowed to go to university. Women were allowed to go to work with UN.
So
and
it was not
NGOs.
about ideology then? Because
if it was about ideology, why would they allow women to go to university from first place? Only women from grade 6 up to grade 12 were not allowed. But now they think, well, we should restrict women so that the world engage with us, and then slowly we allow women to go to work and university if the world recognizes. So they're using women as a bargaining chip, and that's why I think you know we should. Yes, someone like President Erdogan, Sheikh Tamim, the regional countries, they must unite, because the problem is they're not united. For instance, China has a lot of economic interest.
Yes.
Russia has a different interest. The US has a different interest. So Taliban feels safe. If they are not working with one country, they know that there is another country who will work.
There's no unified
exactly.
approach. So your suggestion is that there should be a unified approach on basic principles.
Exactly.
Do you see any hope? You're trying your best, I know, but what do you think?
I'm trying, along with my other sisters, to create a hope, because obviously we don't want to be outside our country forever. There is a huge educated society of Afghans who left their country. The country is basically, there is a brain drain.
Yeah.
Every day I talk to the educated ones, the ones that I had hoped that they will stay in Afghanistan. Today I talked with a woman who was always, you know, protesting, mobilizing women, and she was like, Ms. Koofi, I can't do it anymore. I want to leave. I want to leave. She was asking me to help her leave. And I said, well, if you leave, it's like completely dark. You know, I don't want you to leave. And she was like, but my daughter cannot go to school. My children cannot go to school. My daughter is now in grade 7. She cannot go to school. I'm a mother. I have a responsibility for my children. Everybody like that. So sometimes I lose hope. But obviously, there is a huge community that are looking at us and want us to deliver to them. So I think working with, again, I'm not losing hope. I think in 1 year or two, we will start a political process. That's my hope. A political process, because Taliban think they're the victory. It's not going to be like that forever. They will face huge challenges from inside. There will be internal fragmentation. Already there is internal fragmentation. There will be more poverty. So they have to deliver to the people.
The economic situation is not very bright either. So maybe it will force them to reconsider, because women participation is also in the workplace is also important. So
exactly, women participation in the workforce, you know, economic opportunities through engagement with the world, business opportunities. Nothing will the banking. Nothing will open if they don't open open for a political process and for women's rights. So I'm hoping that this will create a fragmentation along with a united kind of opposition led by women will hopefully pressurize Taliban and a united international position.
Since you're in Turkey, we have only 2 minutes left, Ms. Koofi. Do you think Turkey has done enough or it has more things to do to help you go through this process?
I think Turkey has an important role to play. There is a huge expectation from Turkey because of its location. Like literally you can see everybody in Istanbul. Since I came here, you know, I meet all these people virtually, but I met Feridun Oğlu, who is the special head of special assessment, independent assessment. Richard Bennett was here. There were others. UN is here. Huge community of Afghans are here. Politicians, activists, women's rights, civil society, media, journalists. I think it can be a potential place for, you know, getting together and possible political process. This could be the best place. And so therefore, I think there should be more space for political opposition. Turkey could work with the Taliban government, de facto government to pressurize them for a political process. Because I know.
Let me just ask you to confirm that you wouldn't be really upset or frustrated if Turkey officially recognizes the government, for instance, right? But with
I would be.
You would be?
I would be. I don't expect Turkey to recognize Taliban until they open up completely for a political process and for women's rights.
So there should be, I mean, there will
How
be...
could any government recognize a government which there is no woman, right?
Yeah.
You have so many women ministers. The president's wife is so active, the first lady of Turkey, Her Excellency Emine Erdogan. I met her so many times. I met both president's daughters, you know, Sumaya Hanım and Isra Hanım. I met all of them. I met your ministers of women's affairs and family affairs. I met many parliamentarians who are, and I met wonderful journalists like yourself. So how could Turkey could survive without having women? The same with Afghanistan. So I think we need to really keep some leverage.
So under these circumstances, conditions, no way to recognize the government, but if they fulfill some of the demands...
If they open for a political process and if they fully recover women's rights, then yes.
Then yes. Hopefully, Ms. Koofi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming
Thank
here.
you.
Evet, Fawzia Koofi bizlerleydi bugün. Afganistan parlamentosunun ilk kadın meclis başkan yardımcısı, parlamentonun ilk kadın başkan yardımcısı, aynı zamanda geçmişte Taliban'la müzakerelerde de çok büyük rol oynamış. Şu anda da aktivist olarak Afganistan dışında siyasi aktivizmine devam eden bir isim. Afganistan siyasetinde önemli bir isim. Fawzia Koofi bizlerleydi. Özellikle kadın hakları için çalışan, mücadele veren bir isimdi. Kendisini ağırladık Saat Farkı'nda. Tekrar farklı bir konuyla, farklı bir konukla görüşmek üzere. Hoşça kalın.